And Jen, to look at things from almost like the other side of it, because you said earlier something about we all need to take responsibility for our own well-being. So Emma's talked about that kind of allyship and the leadership and the culture. But in terms of how we can take responsibility, because there's a couple of questions have come in, things like hybrid working. How's that going to impact on us, especially when you're new to join? Do you think that there's a disproportionate amount of women suffering poor work-life balance because we're not as good as kind of asking for what we want? Because we know this is true of salary rises. So I just wondered, in terms of us taking responsibility for our own boundaries and our own well-being and so on, like, tell us some more about what you've seen really, really works.
Yeah, absolutely. So, boundaries is one of my favorite things to talk about, actually, from a well-being perspective. It's probably
Right.
also the thing that I struggle with the most, because we all do, right? So I think starting there, right? And I think, as women, and in certain cultures, I just wrote an article about this, saying no, right? Saying no is really hard, because we feel like we're letting somebody down. Or, and we don't want to let people down, especially if we're high performers. But
Mm.
I think that the reframe on boundaries is, what I do is, why am I saying yes to this? What are the reasons that I'm saying yes? And are those reasons good enough? Do they kind of hit my North Stars in terms of goals and things that I want to accomplish? But when it comes to boundaries, it's fascinating to me that, we lock up our stuff. We lock up our homes, we lock up our cars. We protect our things. But when it comes to our own personal health and well-being,
Mm.
we do a terrible job of locking that stuff up. And the other really interesting thing about boundaries is we like to blame others for overrunning our boundaries, that, Emma did not respect my boundaries. But most of the time, people aren't bad people. They just can't read your mind. And so if you don't communicate your boundaries, you can't really expect Emma to know what they are. She doesn't know what my needs are, because I haven't had that conversation with her. And we talk a lot about this in the book. And what makes these things easier is, if you're an ally, if you have relationships in the workplace, if you have psychological safety, you feel comfort, you feel a sense of trust, it makes it a lot easier to talk about these things.
Mm.
Regardless, you have to kind of get comfortable with what those non-negotiables are to you, because the truth is, if you're not protecting your own well-being and you're not putting yourself first, as selfish as it might feel, especially for women, um, you aren't really showing up for the people and the things that matter for to you in your life. You can't, because you're not at your best, because you're not taking care of yourself. You're either not getting enough sleep, not getting movement, you're not eating nutritious food, whatever it is, however you refuel and rest and recover, have to make that a top priority. For me, I'm as tactical as putting it on my calendar. If you look at my calendar, I've posted it actually on social media before. I have breakfast, lunch, dinner, two snacks, workout, and bedtime in my calendar. Because I'm the kind of person that I do what my calendar tells me to do. And that's a good way to also ritualize it and routine, make things a routine. The other thing is don't try to overhaul your entire life at once. Do it we call them micro steps, micro habits, micro, whatever you want to call them. But, pick something that you're doing in your life. So I'm a big believer in gratitude. It has made a huge difference in my outlook and my mood. I struggle with anxiety. Gratitude is a really great strategy for me to get over anxiety. So I have a practice of anxiety. I brush my teeth every morning and every evening. When I'm brushing my teeth, I practice gratitude. I think about, the people that I'm grateful for, what happened that day that I'm grateful for, right? And so it's not adding more time into your day. It's what can you do on top of something that's already a routine in your day that is small, that over time is really going to make a difference. Because I think when we talk about well-being and boundaries, people think that it means this massive overhaul in their life.
Sure.
And you can't think about it that way, because what happens is you'll do it for a week or 2 weeks and then you'll fail. And then you'll beat
So,
yourself up for failing. Right? And then it's just not worth it. I'm just going to keep doing things the way I did it because it's easier and it's comfortable, right? And that's
yeah.
why change is hard. So if you think about it in small, like what are small changes or small things that I can do, we found, and all the research shows that that's really helpful as well.
So what I'm hearing, the things I'm taking away from that is number one, one dead battery can't charge another. There's that thing about like
Absolutely.
we've got to look after ourselves. There's something about clarity. What are my non-negotiables? What's important to me? What's my North Star? And then not expecting other people to mind read. How can I make that obvious? And obviously it's easier if you're in a psychologically safe team and you have that open discussion. But I'm also fascinated by like how often silly things could do the heavy lifting for us, like what does our email signature say, and do I pick up the
Yep.
phone, and etc.
Absolutely. I mean, we have to take responsibility for our own well-being. We cannot expect somebody else to take care of us. We have to define our own well-being non-negotiables. We have to set our own boundaries. We have to do those things. And organizations and teams need to empower that. But organizations and teams can only go so far. I can create the greatest culture in the world, and if you choose to not take care of yourself, I can't force you to take care of yourself, right? So there's individual agency and responsibility.